there will be teams to follow. And there's a recruiting class that's currently committed to LSU that now does not have a head coach, at least not the one they committed to initially. That, of course, Brian Kelly. Sam Spiegelman with the Rivals Network. Good enough to give us some time to talk a little bit about the fallout from Brian Kelly's firing. He joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sam, how are you?
Doing great, Hunt. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. It's pretty busy around here at this point in time, and I would imagine that's the same in your world. Your reaction, I guess, big picture to Brian Kelly being fired and where that leaves LSU right now with a month and some change until signing day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this point has been beaten to a pulp, but I covered Les Miles, I covered Ed Orgeron, obviously know the staff members at LSU from their times in Baton Rouge and across the state for some time. This felt like I think I said it on this show, a coaching staff that could not only recruit the heck out of the state of Louisiana, but put them in a position that they're used to, competing for national championships. The only question mark was how would Brian Kelly fit into Baton Rouge? We know he's not from the South. He's not from Louisiana, which is why, Ed Orgeron was so beloved here so many years ago when he won a natty. The biggest issue, in my opinion, and I think that, he had so much success on the field, but when that teetered off, the coaching staff, the offensive coordinators, they couldn't kind of hold this ship forward. The players seem to not believe in Brian Kelly. I don't know if they ever did fully believe in Brian Kelly, but at least they were winning on the field, and there was excitement and optimism in and around the program and the future. But now that he's out, there's still a lot of optimism about the program. There's a lot of talented coaches and coordinators still there in Baton Rouge. There's a lot of players and future players potentially that are coming to Baton Rouge. I think LSU, it's going to be interesting to see how they attack this coaching hire, because they cannot afford to slip up and hire another head coach that's not going to understand the state of Louisiana, because this has been an experiment that's gone wildly wrong very quickly.
So let's talk about the current structure of the LSU football program that has Austin Thomas there as the general manager, a group under him of personnel people. And then you've got, obviously, Frank Wilson as the interim head coach, who is recruiting coordinator and associate head coach, who has worked through multiple head coaches here in Baton Rouge. So, what's that operation looking like right now, and what do you think their plan is for the next 5 weeks?
Yeah, win games and get these kids to keep buying into what they're doing at LSU. What's so different is, when Ed Orgeron was let go and BK was hired, they didn't have this structural front office that resembles, more of the New Orleans Saints than it did LSU at the time in 2020 or 2021, whenever that was. This is a full general manager, associate general manager, assistant general manager, director of recruiting, director of personnel. They have multiple high-level people in that building that you'd imagine would be a part of this search, because they have such a huge footprint in the roster development, roster accumulation, which is, we talked about on this show. It's whether it's high school recruiting was one thing, but transfer portal recruiting is a huge part of it. And LSU obviously invested so much and didn't see the results. Maybe some of those people in the front office will be evaluated by the next head coach, but that's probably Scott Woodward's call. There's a lot of important people involved here. The second part of your question is, Frank Wilson, Corey Raymond, Blake Baker, those are some names that have left Baton Rouge and have since come back. This fan base loves Frank Wilson. If he wins a couple of games, I'm assuming that will solidify that he'll be back next year. I don't think he expects to be in the running as the head coach, but this is a man who has been the head coach of McNeese and UTSA and recruited the state better than any other current, working college assistant or coordinator in the country. This is the man responsible for all of the biggest recruits, dating back to a time of Tyrann Mathieu and Leonard Fournette, to as recently as Big Rich Anderson and Lamar Brown, who are the centerpieces of this 2026 recruiting class. I would imagine that he is likely going to be back in Baton Rouge, but that is completely speculation. Scott Woodward, Austin Thomas, and whoever is named, the next coach has to say, they have to examine whether it's Frank or Blake Baker, who's been sensational this year, or Corey Raymond since he got back, retooling that room. You're assuming that that staff would want valuable assets, but Brian Kelly didn't once upon a time, so it's hard to read the future.
It is. So let's talk. I mean, usually when a coach is fired, that you see the edits pop up, reopening my recruitment, decommitting. Like that's usually pretty rampant, no matter where you are. Haven't seen that with LSU's class right now. You've got 17 commitments. You mentioned Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson. Are you surprised that you haven't seen 3 or 4 guys decide that they're gonna reopen things officially?
I'm not too surprised. The majority of LSU's class is from the state of Louisiana, and most of those kids, if given the opportunity and the right situation, want to play for the Tigers. That's shown. Lamar Brown had the entire country, still has schools calling his phone. Same with Big Rich, same with Aiden Hall, same with Bryson Martinez, Jabari Mack, you name it. These are players that we don't just talk about in the state of Louisiana on Friday nights. We talk about around the country. They're the best of the best. And Brian Kelly and more so this staff won pivotal recruitments. And because NIL is tied in, I think those kids are largely in wait and see mode. Like I mentioned, Lamar Brown is talking to other schools. Bryson Martinez, their 4-star tackle, is talking to other schools, but they're not rushing to make a move. They want to see who's going to be retained, and they want to see who's going to be named not only the coach, but who's going to be the wide receiver coach, who is going to be the D-line coach. It's a lot to figure out, but because LSU, we talk nationally, they're talking about it as such a different job. And, the part of the success of LSU has always been having that background in the state of Louisiana, that these kids don't grow up wanting to go to Tulane or UL and McNeese. And I'm sorry if those coaches or fans are listening. It's just the truth. They want to play for the Bayou Bengals, and they're going to give LSU and this new staff every opportunity to stay on board if everything does work out accordingly.
So this is an impossible question to know, but let's just play the hypothetical out. That's kind of what recruiting is anyway. What if LSU wants to hire a coach who's in the playoff, and that coach doesn't take the job at LSU until Christmas after the first round of the playoff, or even into January? I'm going to talk about that in my second hour and why that's problematic from an LSU perspective. But signing day is in the middle of December, and what if LSU does not have a coach on signing day?
Yeah, that would be an extremely precarious situation. You're talking about kids that are planning to enroll in January for the most part. Lamar Brown is an early graduate. Aiden Hall is an early graduate. Big Rich is an early graduate. These kids, Deuce Gerald's out of Georgia, the new sack leader in Georgia's high school football state history, who's originally from Baton Rouge. Like I said earlier, these kids have the option to sign, and of course, they can hit the transfer portal. That's not a nuanced opportunity. But with NIL being factored in, I think that they're more willing to possibly let it ride. I just don't think it's possible. I don't think we've really ever seen a team ever survive an early signing period with that level of prospects. You're able to hold on when you got a bunch of 4-stars from in-state, but like I said, we're talking about Lamar Brown, the number 1 player in the country. We're talking about Big Rich Anderson, the number 2 defensive lineman in the country. These are premium positions. They are widely coveted. I think the LSU brass has to be thinking, we pulled the plug before Halloween. We need to have something in place before Thanksgiving so that we can sell not only our fan base, but these recruits that we're trying to attract back to Baton Rouge.
There was a lot of talk about Lamar Brown being in the stadium on Saturday. A&M obviously has recruited him very heavily, and him maybe be hanging out with A&M fans in the crowd. The rumors I've heard about everything under the sun over the last 72 hours have been wild. What can you say about what Saturday night's impact may have had on Lamar Brown?
I think I can say this for sure. Covered Lamar Brown since he was in the 8th grade, and he has flirted with committing to LSU and potentially more schools a handful of times and never pulled the trigger. He waited until, I believe it was July 7th or 11th. You're going to have to excuse me. My memory is a Swiss cheese block. Waited because he wanted to be 100% sure, and his mom was a leading candidate is why he waited. And that, don't trust me, Frank Wilson and those Tigers, Mike Elko and those Aggies tried to get him to commit way earlier all the time. I think if everything works out, we're talking about some staff retention, guys like Frank Wilson or potentially Blake Baker. I think Lamar Brown wants to be a Tiger. A&M, Miami are both in contact with him. They've been in contact with him. They never stopped recruiting him. The way that this NIL deal is set up, LSU is putting a lot of resources in making sure Lamar Brown has a bright future in the state of Louisiana. I can't say that he will not open his recruitment, and he's had a chance to shut things down, but I think that's unfair to the kid. He's, I think, a week and a half away from his senior high school football playoffs. Maybe by the time that U-High has either won a state championship or he's done as a senior, LSU should have some more clarity on what's coming to Baton Rouge. I think he's going to sign with LSU. If you ask me today, that's not a lock by any means. Mike Elko and the Aggies are 8-0, and they were this close. I know you can't see me holding this finger, but they were this close to getting Lamar Brown. They are not going away, but trust me, his heart and some NIL papers suggest that LSU is in a pretty decent spot until then.
He's Sam Spiegelman with the Rivals on 3 Network. Good enough to give us a little bit of time. I'm sure we'll be checking in as this month progresses. It's going to be a wild one in Baton Rouge. We appreciate the help.
Yep. Have a good one, Hunt.
Sure will. That is Sam Spiegelman on all of that recruiting. It's and that's just because there's a coaching, like the coaching vacancy at LSU makes things more uncertain, but everything in recruiting is uncertain. So this just adds a variable to it. And you've got a class that is got a lot of star power, and it's got a lot of really good players in it, and a lot of them happen to hail from the state of Louisiana. When you mentioned, as he did, Lamar Brown, Richard Anderson, Jabari Mack, Aiden Hall, Kenny Darby, like it's a class that's got a lot of Louisiana roots in it, and you figure those guys would like to play for LSU, but if you don't have a coach, that makes things difficult. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.